You don't become a CIA spy because you're brave. You become one because you're broken in a specific way, and the government has learned over decades of careful study exactly which kind of broken it can use. You grew up on a military base in North Carolina. Your father was a decorated Marine who came home from 2 tours wearing a chest full of medals and carrying a head full of things he could never explain to anyone, least of all himself. He drank himself into an early grave by the time you were 12. Your mother worked double shifts at a VA hospital, which contains its own quiet irony. The system she gave her life to was the same system that watched your father dissolve from the inside and called it a personal failing. You learned 2 things in that house: how to read a room the moment you walked into it, and how to lie with a face so still it looked like the truth. The first skill came from monitoring your father's moods the way a sailor monitors weather, because the difference between a calm night and a catastrophic one depended entirely on your ability to read the signs early enough to act. The second skill came from telling your teachers week after week that everything at home was fine, that everything was completely, absolutely fine. Turns out those 2 abilities, reading people and constructing convincing fictions, are precisely what appears at the top of the CIA's unwritten wish list. You enlist at 18. 2 deployments follow, neither of them glamorous, mostly sand, sleeplessness, and the particular exhaustion that comes not from danger, but from sustained, grinding uncertainty. You return at 24 feeling like a vehicle with too many miles on it and a frame that's been stressed in ways that don't show until something breaks. That's when a man in a forgettable gray suit appears at a coffee shop near Quantico. He knows your name, your service record, and the cause of your father's death. He slides a business card across the table. No logo, no agency name, just a phone number. He tells you to call if you're interested in doing something that actually matters. You sit with it for 3 days. Then, against every functional instinct you possess, you call. What follows is 18 months at a facility that will later be referred to only as the farm. The curriculum includes surveillance, dead drops, asset recruitment, and counter-surveillance techniques sophisticated enough to make you feel, briefly, like a different species of human. But the real education happens in the interrogation rooms, where they take you apart methodically, not with cruelty, but with precision, until you genuinely cannot locate which version of yourself is the original. The lesson they are teaching, embedded in every session and every exercise and every sleepless evaluation, is this: your identity is a tool, not a truth. You can be anyone. The problem, the one they don't put in the curriculum materials, is that once you genuinely learn to become anyone, you begin losing reliable access to who you actually were. Your handler introduces herself with silver hair and an economy of warmth that borders on clinical. She walks you into a briefing room and lays out the assignment. Deep cover. The Sinaloa Corridor, a cartel cell moving $400 million annually across the Arizona border, with suspected ties to foreign intelligence services running weapons in the opposite direction. Your mission? Infiltrate the organization, map its leadership structure, and report everything back. She delivers the final detail without breaking eye contact. If you are compromised, there is no extraction team. The agency will deny your existence with more conviction than Peter denied Christ. 3 press conferences before your body is cold. You sign the paperwork anyway, because what is the alternative? Return to a version of civilian life that has never once felt like it belonged to you? They build your cover identity from scratch. You become Marco Reyes, a mid-level trafficker out of Tijuana, complete with a manufactured criminal record that would survive most background checks. They inject a tracking implant no larger than a grain of rice into your left shoulder. Your handler gives you a single burner phone with 1 encrypted contact. Check in every 72 hours. Miss 2 consecutive check-ins and the agency's working assumption shifts to deceased. No rescue operation. No cavalry. Just a line drawn through your name on a classified spreadsheet somewhere in a building most Americans don't know exists. Your entry point is a bar in Nogales that smells like stale beer and accumulated regret. A low-level crew runs you through a test, a delivery to a ranch outside Hermosillo. No GPs, no questions asked, no looking inside the package. It is essentially a logistics job where the performance review can include execution for tardiness. You make the delivery. You keep your eyes forward and your curiosity completely invisible, because showing interest in things that aren't your business in this environment carries the same social consequence as showing weakness in a cell block. Over the following 2 months, you run routes, stay quiet, and memorize faces and safe house locations with the discipline discipline of someone who understands that writing anything down is a death sentence. Your handler's responses, received every 72 hours like clockwork, carry all the emotional texture of automated confirmations. Copy. Continue. Noted. The local boss, a man called Lobo, begins trusting you, not because you charmed him, but because you produce results without commentary, and in the cartel, that particular combination is rarer than it ought to be. He brings you into a meeting with the man they call El Contador, the financial architect of the entire operation. No gold chains, no flashy vehicles, reading glasses, and a leather briefcase, looking for all the world like a man heading to a corporate earnings call, because in a meaningful sense, that is exactly what he is. El Contador converts raw drug revenue into legitimate assets through shell companies and real estate that exists only in documentation. He shows you actual spreadsheets, pivot tables, color coding, quarterly projections. The only distinction from a standard corporate report is that the product column refers to cocaine, and the losses column includes personnel who were terminated in both the professional and the irreversible sense. Your handler nearly breaks her composure when you report direct access to the financial operation. She understands what it means. The financial trail leads to everyone. 6 months in, something begins shifting in a way that no training module ever adequately described. The line between Marco and whoever you actually are isn't blurring, it's dissolving. You catch yourself laughing at Lobo's jokes without manufacturing it. You notice genuine concern when El Contador mentions chest pains. The most unsettling part is not that you are beginning to feel like one of them. The most unsettling part is that being one of them feels more real than anything the agency ever gave you. At Langley, you were a personnel number in a system that processed people like inventory. Here, someone saves you a seat at the table without being asked. It is a psychotic version of belonging. It is also the first version of belonging you have ever actually experienced. Then the real test arrives. Lobo identifies a rat, a 23-year-old courier named Diego who was squeezed by the DIA after a routine traffic stop and made a decision that frightened men make when they don't see another option. Lobo looks at you across the table and says the words you have been carrying the dread of since the day you arrived. Handle it personally. You contact your handler expecting alternative protocols, a creative solution, some indication that the agency has considered this scenario. She goes quiet. You count the seconds. 11 of them pass before she speaks. Maintain cover at all costs. She says it the way an accountant writes off a bad debt, without ceremony, without acknowledgement that the debt in question has a name and a mother somewhere. In that moment, you understand something that rearranges the architecture of everything you thought you knew. The CIA and the cartel operate on the same moral framework. Both organizations will sacrifice a human life the instant the cost-benefit analysis reaches a particular threshold. The only difference between them is the letterhead. You do what you are told. You seal it in the same internal vault where your father's last years live, compressed under enough weight to never surface. Lobo calls you soldier. Your handler sends one word. Noted. You sit alone in the dark for 4 hours and take inventory of your own emptiness. The promotion is immediate. Killing Diego was your performance review, and you passed without reservation. El Contador personally requests you as his operational liaison. You now have access to everything. Wire transfers to politicians, monthly payments to federal police commanders, a standing retainer to a senator who chairs the anti-narcotics committee, and then you find something that stops your cardiovascular system for what feels like several seconds. Payments routed through a shell company registered in Virginia, moving through the Cayman Islands, and re-entering the cartel's financial network on the other end. You trace the registered address. It belongs to a dry cleaner in Falls Church. You have seen this document architecture before at the farm during a module on how the agency structures deniable financial operations. The CIA is not monitoring this network. The CIA is funding it. Your mission was never to dismantle the organization. It was to protect the agency's investment. Diego wasn't eliminated because he was talking to someone. He was eliminated because he was talking to the DIA, the one agency the CIA cannot control. You were the instrument. Deployed without knowing whose hand was on the trigger. You go dark. You miss your check-in deliberately. You pull every financial file from El Contador's system, encrypt everything across 3 drives, and distribute them to separate locations. El Contador finds you mid-preparation. He tells you, without particular urgency, that he has known you weren't actually Marco for 3 months. Your Spanish is flawless, but your idioms are textbook constructed. You organize information with the systematic efficiency of an analyst rather than the intuitive chaos of a trafficker. He didn't report you because a known variable is less dangerous than an unknown one. He offers you a proposal. a clean exit route in exchange for taking him with you. You agree, because he is the closest thing to a genuine relationship you have maintained in 2 years. The escape collapses within 3 hours. Cartel counterintelligence seals the highway outside Culiacan with enough firepower to constitute a military engagement. El Contador's own assistant sold the route for a promotion. You move into the desert darkness on foot. Then you hear the rotors. Not cartel, not military, but a Black Hawk bearing the particular markings of a CIA containment operation. Your handler didn't shut down the mission. She sent a team to ensure nothing leaves this desert that shouldn't. You are now positioned between the cartel to the south and the agency above you, two organizations that want you neutralized for identical reasons. You know too much. That is all it takes. El Contador looks at you in the darkness and says something you will carry for the rest of your life. You know the difference between us and them? At least we always knew what we were. You have 60 seconds. You upload everything to an encrypted server with a timed release, miss the cancellation window by 24 hours, and every major newsroom on the planet receives the complete files simultaneously. It is your dead man switch. It is the only leverage you have ever truly held. The spotlight sweeps across you. Gunfire erupts from the ridge above. The helicopter returns fire. For one moment that belongs in no category of human experience, the CIA and the cartel are actively shooting at each other with you standing between them. You grab El Contador and run. He takes a round in the shoulder. You drag him into the river, and the current takes you both into the darkness. You surface on a muddy bank at dawn. You sit in the dirt, holding a hard drive that contains enough information to destabilize multiple governments. You think about your father, who gave everything he had to a country that handed his family a folded flag and called it even. You think about Diego, whose only crime was being afraid. You think about your handler's voice saying noted after you ended a life, with the same inflection she would use to confirm a lunch reservation. The cancellation window is 24 hours away. You could enter the code. You could disappear. You could let the machine keep running and simply remove yourself from it, or you could let it burn. But you have studied every whistleblower whose file crossed your desk. You know what happens to the people who pull the thread. The truth does not set you free. It makes you a target with better documentation. And then the most devastating clarity arrives. Quiet and total. It does not matter which choice you make. You are not a CIA officer. You are not Marco Reyes. You are a ghost sitting in the mud of a country that does not know your real name, working for an agency that will deny you existed, having just escaped an organization that would have eventually concluded the same. Both sides offered you the identical transaction, loyalty in exchange for your soul, and you said yes to both. You said yes twice. You handed yourself over completely, and now there is nothing left of the original version to reclaim. There is only the mud and the river and a hard drive, and a decision that no version of your training ever actually prepared you to make.